Hi everybody. Once again, my name is Mark Irwin. I'm a comic book artist for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, etc. Right now, currently, I'm working on Green Lantern for DC Comics. I'm also doing a Star Wars book for Dark Horse, Darth Vader miniseries, so kind of exciting. I'm here to talk to you guys today a little bit about how I got to where I am, because to me, and I think it's a common theme that you've probably heard today, one of the most important attributes for you guys to have as you're learning and growing is tenacity. I would not be here today if not for that. Being tenacious, not caring about failing, not caring about what other people say, people that are telling me to go get a degree at San Diego State in business and wear a suit and tie, as opposed to what you see here. Tenacity. So for me, I grew up pretty poor. I had two uncles who collected National Lampoon magazine, which way before you guys' time, from the 70s. But it was a great magazine because it had comic art in it by some of the greatest comic book artists in the industry, as well as a lot of humor, a lot of political commentary. It was a great magazine from the standpoint that I got to learn a little bit about the world, as well as get to see great art and be inspired by great artists. I drew from an early age. I knew that I was kind of good at it, but I didn't really know that it was a career. Growing up in San Diego, I thought the career for me was to be a professional surfer. Learned at an early age that I was not quite cut out for that career. So I kind of stuck with drawing through the years, but didn't really know how to make a career of it. I didn't know how do these guys get jobs. I'd go to Comic-Con every year as a little kid and talk to all these great artists and be inspired by them and go home and draw, but had no idea, like how do you actually go and get those jobs? The big companies are in New York. Marvel and DC are both based out of New York City. I lived in San Diego, so how do you make this happen? Well, it turns out that there is a comic book art school called the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art. It's based in Dover, New Jersey. And in my senior year of high school, I had an art teacher who encouraged me to apply to the school. And I didn't really know what the curriculum was. I didn't even know how to make up a portfolio. They only accepted 200 students a year, and comics is incredibly competitive. It's an incredibly tough industry to get into. But I gave it a shot. I cobbled together a bunch of drawings that I'd done on like my math homework, things like that, and sent it off to them. And they called me and did a phone interview and accepted me into the college. Well, at that time, like I said, I was 17. My parents at the time, my stepfather in particular, did not want me to go to art school. They shut down that was not even within the realm of possibility. They were demanding that I go to San Diego State and get the business degree, et cetera, et cetera. So I moved out because I didn't, I could not be that thing that I was not. And I was determined to figure out how to make things happen on my own. So I moved out, worked just about every terrible job you can imagine. I've shined shoes, I've cleaned dishes, I've done construction, I've done landscaping. I've worked in Rite Aid, I've done it all. And the whole time I was doing that, I was trying to figure out, how can I get off to this school? How can I make enough money, save up enough money to pay for my way to go to the school? Well, during that period of time, I met a girl who is now my wife, and she was incredibly encouraging, and she encouraged me to go to my uncle and ask him to co-sign for student loans so I could go to art school. And I did, and he said yes, and I went off to art school. And it was the hardest year of my life. I was in Dover, New Jersey. My girlfriend was still here in San Diego. Dover, New Jersey is the armpit of the world. You don't ever want to go there if you can avoid it, unless you're going to school. And I had to work full-time in the local grocery store. I worked the graveyard shift, stocking shelves. While I was doing that, I was also going to school, and between 8 to 10 hours of homework a day, 7 days a week. Like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And about halfway through the school year, I was failing. I was actually, I needed to sleep occasionally, so I was missing classes, and had a lot of teachers very concerned with me and ready to kick me out. And thankfully at that time, it was close to Christmas, my girlfriend flew out, and her and one of my roommates basically sat me down and gave me a browbeating. You made it this far, don't quit. Stuck it out through the end of the school year, and what ended up happening was, came home for the summer, went to Comic-Con, and I had samples, from my school year. I went to Comic-Con, I talked to a bunch of different artists, and I showed my samples. And one of the artists, he was an inker for Marvel at the time, happened to live in New Jersey, loved my samples, and ended up taking me on as his apprentice. So I was able to go back to New Jersey the next school year and start working professionally. And from that point on, it seemed like the ball started rolling. But it was because I had that encouragement, I was able to be tenacious. And because I had that encouragement and the mentoring, I was able to become professional. The school really taught me all about deadlines and being on time with your work and everything, but working with real professionals who actually made their money in this craft taught me how to do it the right way, taught me who to talk to, how to turn in my work, how to present my work, how to come to a comic convention and talk to other fans and have them, want to buy my books and want to follow the books that I work on, all that sort of thing. When I graduated the school, one of the people who mentored me at the school was Adam Kubert, who's a pretty famous artist for Marvel and DC. Currently he's working on X-Men and Avengers. He got me a job at Heavy Metal magazine, and I was the art director for Heavy Metal magazine upon graduation. During that time, and at the time they were based in Manhattan, so I was working in Manhattan. While that happened, I was still sending in my samples, still trying to become a comic book artist. And I got hired by a company called Wildstorm, which was based in La Jolla, San Diego. And Wildstorm was the company of Jim Lee, who's probably the biggest comic book artist right now. I'm not sure if you guys know him or not, but he's also the publisher of DC Comics currently. So I went to work for him. I quit Heavy Metal and came home and went to work for him, and kind of the rest is sort of history. Once I started working for them, I started making all my connections with Marvel and DC, et cetera, and picking up jobs along the way. One of the great things about working in this industry, and one of the great things about comics in general, is that comics, it's not the thing that Americans, I think most American audiences, think it is. It's not just guys running around in tights. Yes, that's the most popular form of comics, and that's how I make my money, but comics is greater than that. Comics is storytelling, and it lends itself to almost every aspect of popular entertainment and culture that you guys are into. If you're into movies, there's comic book artists that are doing the storyboards for those movies. If you're into animation, half the animation industry in LA right now are ex-comic book artists that have moved from comics into animation. It can be anything you want it to be. If you want to tell a story about your day at school, which would be the most boring story ever, but if you wanted to do that, you could do that in comics. If you wanted to tell a Western, there's Western comics. If you want to tell a sci-fi story, there's sci-fi comics. It can be anything and everything. And comic book artists, to me, are the greatest artists in the world because they have to draw anything and everything. And do it all well enough so that you know what the heck you're looking at. To go with all of those things, comics lends itself to other aspects of the industry. I've been a project manager, I've been an art director, I've been a brand manager. I've done literally every aspect of things, not just from the drawing standpoint, but also from the business standpoint. And what ends up happening is you make all of these connections and you learn how to do a lot of different jobs that allow you to become viable in any industry and to do anything. I can show you from the idea, the very idea of a product that you have, all the way through the stages of making the product, making the packaging for the product, actually manufacturing the product, having the product shipped into the stores. All of those things are different jobs in the supply chain, so to speak. But once you start at one point and you start making all these connections, you can learn how to do aspects of all of those jobs, and it allows you to become a much more viable candidate for work and for career, and just to make those connections allows you to just be a better person and to participate in all sorts of different things with different people. That all being said, and I know that was a little bit boring because I have a very monotonous voice, I'm going to draw a picture for you guys. And this will just be, some little doodling. And this is basically how I started my career, was doodling. Like I said, I wasn't joking about the math homework thing. That's totally true. I used to draw Eddie from Iron Maiden on all my math homework. Drove my teachers crazy, which is why I'm not a mathematician. But I'll do a little bit of sketching, and then I'll show you a little bit more. I'll do a little bit of inking, because that's kind of what my main job is in comics. Comics is an assembly line process. So you got a writer, you have a penciler who kind of draws out the story, sketches it, and you have an inker, which is what I do. And my job is to, in ink, finish the pages, make them print ready, because you can't print from pencils usually. And then that's all uploaded to a FTP site, and then a colorist goes in and digitally colors everything, and then a letterer takes those files and letters those files. And that's how the printed comic comes about. But I'll just show you a real quick thing here. I like drawing monsters, so bear with me. And of course, while I'm doing all this, let it be said that this is my first time actually live drawing for anybody. And so I'm really, really nervous, so bear with me. So the way I'm thinking as I'm drawing this is that I'm just roughing in all the basic shapes. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I know that I'm going to be coming back into this with ink and finishing it up and making it look a little cooler. So right now it just looks kind of like a bunch of random shapes. Okay, now that I have everything kind of roughed in, this is kind of the way I do sketches at Comic-Con. I do like 5-minute sketches, super fast stuff. Yeah, I can keep working on this for a while, but it's kind of boring to watch somebody draw. So that was just a quick, real rough sketch for you guys. I guess the kind of, I feel a little weird being here because, I draw comic books, and got all these scientists and, incredibly smart people here. But the point, I guess, that I would like to make, because it's a lesson that I've learned, again, is that if you stick to your guns, if you guys have a dream and you have a passion and you're excited about things, stick to it. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody get in your way. It doesn't mean to, be disrespectful to other people's ideas or anything like that, because you can incorporate all those things into what you do. But be who you are. Go out there and get it, because you can make it no matter how difficult the path might seem. You can definitely make it. But thanks for having me.